Atenção para o toque de 5 segundos para mais uma transmissão ao vivo.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Talks. It is a great joy to be here with you to speak about our beloved gospel. And we will reflect today on chapter 9, that is, Blessed are the meek and the peacemaker. Our purpose here at the Spirit Talks is to understand how to live Jesus' words in our daily lives in a practical and transformative way. And today's chapter is very fascinating, very challenging. We have selected 2 passages of the gospel for our reflection. And in the first one, Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." This is in Matthew. And also in Matthew, he clarifies, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment.' But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever says to his brother, 'Haka,' will be liable to the council, and whoever says, 'You fool,' will be liable to the fire of hell." These are very strong words, aren't they? And so we ask ourselves, what does this mean? If we are meek, how will we inherit the earth? And if we call someone foolish, or if we insult them, will we be condemned? Olá, Ana Paula. Hello, welcome. If I call someone with an insult, is that a reason to be condemned? And what is this condemnation? What does this mean? Should I never say anything negative about someone, even when I know they are doing wrong? So stay with me, because today we will answer all of these questions. And with these teachings, Jesus shows us that calmness, patience, inner balance is dealing with others and with the most kindness we can. This should be our goal always. And he asks us to set aside all forms of aggression, of rudeness, of anger. However, if we misinterpret these teachings, this can cause a great confusion among Christians, because many may think they must remain silent in the face of injustice, in the face of evil, believing that meek and peaceful speaks only of love, only of peace. And this is a serious illusion in the world of trials and expiation. What Jesus teaches us is that there's a profound difference between pointing out a mirror from a place of inner balance and attacking someone with anger or contempt. So the inner place from which our words arise makes all the difference. So you might ask yourself, if someone hurts you or does you wrong, should you speak or should you stay silent? And the answer is, it depends. Where does your speech come from? So Jesus was never complicit with evil. he always pointed out where the apostles needed to improve, what they were doing wrong, but speaking from a place of balance. His treatment to the Pharisees, that were religious leaders who appeared meek on the outside, but on the inside they were corrupt, was pure truth. But Jesus was very firm. And he called them hypocrites, serpents, brood of vipers. And this was fully from a place of peace in his conscience, because his words came from balance, not from rage. So if you need to say something to someone, ask yourself, does it come from truth or from anger? Because anger itself is not a bad thing. The Bible tells us that Jesus felt anger himself. So we need anger as an internal signal that something is wrong. So when there is violence, when there is abuse, when there is evil, feeling anger is natural. But anger must not control our words, our actions. Inner balance must. So Jesus was firm with the Pharisees. But notice that there a big difference of how you are feeling about those words, how the intention changes the vibration of the words. So, for example, if I say a phrase that Jesus said for the Pharisees with rage, I would say, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but on the inside full of bones and all kinds of filth. So you also appear righteous to people outwardly, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity." So this statement is charged. It comes from hatred. It's very charged. Now pay attention to the vibration of the same words when they come from a place of inner balance. "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are all like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, full of bones and all kinds of filth. So you also appear righteous to people outwardly, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity." So it's kind of him feeling pity about the Pharisee. It's very different. This statement comes from truth. You do not feel disguise about the people you're talking to. So there's a clear difference between being offensive and speaking the truth. So if you need to say something to someone, where does your speech come from? If it comes from hatred, from anger, from rage, I'll give you an advice that comes from Chico Xavier, and it's about the water of peace. If you feel angry when you are provoked, when you are offended, or you feel the impulse to respond aggressively, just say nothing. Take a sip of water. Do not swallow. Remain silent, holding the water in your mouth until the urge to react passes. So this is the water of peace, until you are calm enough to speak from a place of inner balance. Do not say things that you will regret later. And even words like you are worth nothing, you are a fool, these were considered by Jesus as extremely harmful, both to the one that receives them and to the one who speaks them, because the one who speaks them becomes magnetized to these energies of hatred. So in everything we experience, our intention and level of awareness either aggravate or lessen the mistake. So sometimes a word that seems very small can cause enormous damage. And when we speak offensively from a place of hatred, we go against the law of love that we learned with Jesus himself. And at the same time, we must also be careful to not confuse meekness with naivety. Because naturally, when we are dealing with gentle and peaceful people, we should be meek like a dove. But when we are dealing with those who delight in evil or those who are narcissistic, we must be meek like a serpent. And serpents, they intimidate. They are powerful. They are swords itself. And they have a lot of authority. But if the serpent uses the authority to attack, it can kill. So the challenge of meekness then is to speak the truth, to express what hurts us, and to point out errors, but from a place of inner balance, so that other learns to respect our boundaries. And if you do not express what you feel when someone wrongs you, if you repress what is happening inside you in the face of an incorrect attitude, this is some kind of denial of your own truth and identity. It becomes an accumulation of emotional waste. So it is essential to know how to express what bothers us in a very respectful way, of course. You can say words like, I didn't like your attitude, or the way you are handling this situation is wrong and it will have this impact. Or, I understand your point of view, but I think differently. Or, I feel uncomfortable with this situation. Or maybe you can say, I would prefer that the next time you consult me before making decisions that affect me. That's great, right? You were able to express your discomfort in a very respectful way. And beyond the teaching about having these difficult conversations through nonviolent communication, Jesus also teaches us that those who are meek are happy because they will inherit the earth. But what does it mean to inherit the earth? So while we wait the higher life that Jesus promised us, we still need worldly things, the basics, the necessary means to live. And what he teaches us is not to give more value to material possessions than to what truly matters, what we carry in our hearts. So Jesus wanted to show that in the present times, as we see, those who are violent, who trample over others, who lack empathy, often are the ones in position of power on earth. So they seem to have the best in the eyes of the world, while meek people sometimes, peaceful people sometimes often lack even what they need to live. But what he makes it clear is that injustice will not last forever. So the time is coming when justice will be done, when mosques will fall, and this is what we call the planetary transition to a world of regeneration. So the meek will be called children of God, as Jesus said. The world will be transformed into a regenerated place with more goodness, and evil will losing its power, will no longer have space to operate due to this planetary transition. So those brothers and sisters in spirit who still delight in evil will be relocated to other planets to continue their evolution. And this is condemnation itself, because they will probably go to a planet with low vibration, and the vibrations of evil will be incompatible with this world. So the spirit Lazarus, very truthful, says that education and worldly experience can give a person the varnish of affability and sweetness. And the varnish is a superficial coating applied in a painting, for example, to give them shine. So, how many people appear extremely kind on the outside, always smiling, showing sympathy, using beautiful words, while inwardly are concealing negative intentions? So, this world is full of people who have smile in their lips, who have coldness in the speech, but poison in their hearts. So, we see many people who are gentle only when the circumstances favor them. Because if they are contradicted, they destroy whoever is necessary to maintain control. How many have a golden tongue when are speaking face to face, but when are in the back are like venomous creatures? And how many are good Christians inside the religion, but are tyrants at home? So Lazarus remembers us that it is not enough that milk and honey flow from the lips if the heart is in no way associated with them. There is only hypocrisy. Notice that here he points out hypocrisy. He identifies the error, but from a place of inner balance. And he follows one whose affability and sweetness are never faint, never contradicts himself. He is the same both in society and in intimacy. This is our goal, to be the same both in society and in intimacy. And also, we remember that pretending is useless because we may play a role to society, but we cannot lie to God. So this is based on our vibration. The life is based on our vibration. We will attract experiences of joy, of sorrow, and this is all based in how we vibrate. So peace is built through our inner choices. And Joana de Angelis teaches that patience is also a form of charity. And she considers the giving things to the poor is the easiest of all charities, but there is a far more painful and a far more meritorious charity. There is forgiving those that God places in our path as instruments of our suffering. That's our patience. And Lazarus presents us with two companions of meekness, that is obedience and resignation. And God does not impose anything to us. He proposes a reincarnatorial plan that would be the most effective one for our evolution. But the lack of obedience and resignation inevitably leads to anxiety, to existential emptiness. Those who resist changing enter in a state of deep inner restlessness. Lazarus says the pusillanimous, which means the cowardly, the fearful, cannot be resigned, just as the proud and the selfish cannot be obedient. So many people feel uneasy with the words obedience and resignation because they seem to suggest a denial of feeling and personal will. However, to be obedient is precisely to reach a state of inner balance in which one's will become aligned with the Father's will. And that is why for those who have learned to master themselves, in Lazarus' words, obedience is the consent of reason. Because one is able to perceive meaning in God's plans, or even when he or she does not fully understand them, there is a faith, a recognition that his superiority is guiding our lives. And also resignation is the consent of the horde, because those who align themselves with the divine, the greatest happiness of alignment is to fulfill God's will. And this does not lead to a heavy burden. This leads to peace. And finally, Lazarus draws our attention to pride, which leads to human beings to think more highly of themselves than they should. So making them unable to tolerate comparisons or opinions that might diminish them. Pride leads to anger. It's that well-known reaction. Who do you think you are to speak to me like that, right? So Lazarus invites us to observe the origin of these outbursts of rage, of brutality. And he concluded that they most arise from wounded pride, because wounded pride causes people to reject even the most thoughtful advices and to lose reason when they are faced with contradiction. So many complications from the way the people think of themselves, from this importance that each person gives to their own personality, from this belief that everyone must bend to their will. And the angry person will argue, will insult, will throw objects, will break things when they realize that they do not control everything, that they cannot occupy God's place. So Lazarus reflects, oh, if you could see yourself in those moments, you would either be afraid of yourself or find yourself quite ridiculous. It's so funny that he writes this. And we must not cling to the idea that we cannot change. Some people say, oh, this is who I am. This is my temperament. There is nothing I can do. But this is actually simply a lack of willingness to correct the flaws that would take a lot of effort, a lot of perseverance to overcome. So yes, we can change. That's precisely why we are here on earth, why we are incarnated. We are here to change, not to stabilize. And we will close with Joanna D'Angela's counsel. She say, courage, friends. You have Christ as your model. He suffered more than any of you and had nothing for which to atone, while you must expiate your past and strengthen yourselves for the future. Be patient, then be Christians. That word sums up everything. So, my friends, we have reached the end of today's episode. We reflected on chapter 9 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. And next week, we will comment the same chapter in French, continuing this mission to spread the gospel to all peoples. And now let's move to our moment of prayer. If you wish, you may place your water to be fluidified, and let us close your eyes, take a deep breath, and together connect with God. Lord Jesus, we place our hearts before you and ask, teach us true meekness. May we not confuse gentleness with weakness, nor firmness with aggressiveness. Grant us balance to speak the truth without hurting, to correct without humiliating, and to set boundaries without hatred. When anger tries to take control of our words, help us to become silent within before responding outwardly. May our speech arise from inner balance, not from wounded pride. Deliver us from the hypocrisy of appearances and transform our inner selves so that we may be the same in every place. Grant us patience in our trials, resignation in the face of what we cannot change, and courage to change what needs to be transformed within us. May we learn to govern our emotions, for this is how we begin to inherit the earth, by mastering ourselves. Stay with us and shape our hearts according to yours. So be it.
Não esqueça de curtir o vídeo, se inscrever no canal e ativar as notificações.